Just give me a second. Do you see something that says recording on your screen?
Yes, I do.
All right,
It's a little
so
red. Yeah, a
we're
red icon.
recording. Welcome to the show, David. Thank you so much for being a guest. I usually start by a little bit of an introduction, and then I'll have you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Okay?
Sounds good.
Do you still agree to the consent form and release form that I sent you?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Today, my guest is David Rafael. I've known this man for a very long time. We met in the Navy. We were in La Maddalena together. And the first time I met him, I remember, I mean, this is just how things were, I guess, back then, where people were like, well, hey, you're from New York and this guy's from New York. So you guys must know each other, right? Like, you know this guy, which obviously we didn't. We were from completely different parts of New York. But I met you soon after that. And it was something in you that I noticed that I was like, I like this guy. I like his New Yorkerness in a way. And what I mean by that is that he was straightforward and he just gave it to you. He told you what he really thought. And being in New York, I really appreciated that about you. And then when I got to know you later, I got to find out how much of an interesting person you were. The way you sort of that introspecting, like the way you could look inside things and not just you weren't a very surfacey type person is the way I feel. I don't know if that's true or not, but let me turn it over to you. Just tell people a little bit about who you are, David.
Well, as Richard has said, I'm from New York originally, but I left at 18 and lived in Florida for a little while with my parents before joining the Navy. And the Navy, during the 10 years I spent in the Navy, I could admit that I felt a little bit out of place in the military because I just have a very, I guess, strong sense of individualism, and that could be a little bit of an issue sometimes, depending on who your superiors are and the situation. But in retrospect, I see now the kind of pathway that my life has taken, that the military was such a huge and powerful kind of stepping stone for the rest of my life. And it brought me to places and submerged me into experiences that very few people get to do. And I'll be specific by saying that living in another country, all people should do. Like,
Yeah,
all Americans should
agreed.
live in
Agreed.
another country
Yes.
if they can, if they have the means and the resources. That experience in itself of just having to assimilate to another culture, which you and I both did, and having to return to your own culture and experience reverse culture shock.
Yeah.
Culture shock at your own,
I like that reverse culture
your
shock.
own, yeah. And so that was bizarre. That was a bizarre experience for me, and forced me into this place of objective, an objective kind of understanding of who I am, where I'm from, what it means to be an American, what advantages that has and disadvantages that it has. And
Yes.
I wouldn't have gotten that from, if I hadn't lived overseas for the good portion of my 20s. And those were also very formative years, the early 20s, when you're becoming an adult and, getting into starting to make those mistakes that kind of trail you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But those were those formative years in the military. And I got away with, even though we were in the military, I got away with a lot being in the military.
Oh God. Back
And
then,
being
yeah, we did.
overseas, and you're kind of in this limbo culturally where you're really not part of their culture, but then you're kind of off the grid in your own culture. So there's some liberty associated with that, that reality, and we both experienced that. So yeah, we always have that.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, that was an amazing time. I think it's not just the place, right? We were in another country, which was Italy, which is It's a great place, man. I mean, especially at that time, it was just an awesome place to be. Which you said, like, freeing, the way their society seemed structured. It was more kind of que será, you know what I mean? Like a very, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but it was very, where in America is what I'm trying to say, is you have that kind of go, 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 push, 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 make money, get a house, get to succeed. They were more like sitting down on the piazza, you know, having a sip of wine. Let's walk around, let's stroll. We'll get to that. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying?
Domani, domani.
Yeah. You know, it'll happen. It'll happen. Don't worry about it. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. There's an Italian saying, I'm sure you heard. I'm trying to remember what it is. The art of doing nothing. I forgot how they say it in Italian, but it was a phrase they would say. It's very Italian, the art of doing nothing, which is, and in the way I see it, just sitting around smelling the roses, taking your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the maybe the benefit of being bored, you know, and how it can maybe push your imagination, and maybe, you know, I hear that that's, you know, what how kids now are, you know, they're not bored enough. There's
Mm,
always just so much in front of them that they don't have that time to just slow everything down and ponder and then allow their minds to, you know, their imaginations to kind of just roam,
yeah,
because there's just all the devices and everything. But yeah, I that Mediterranean lifestyle, we once you get plugged into that, then it becomes a little hard to re-plug in to what you, as you said, are kind of go go go, um, you know, mentality here.
yeah,
And you know, where you're just plugged in and you got to make that dough, and you got to, you know, you got to perform and have all the newest gadgets. And
right,
but we were free from that for,
yeah,
you know, a good number of years
yeah,
during, and you know, when we were very impressionable, when we were young. And you know, that kind of just, that experience just kind of redirected my entire pathway. Like, who knows
yeah,
if, you know, I'll probably be a fireman in New York like
yeah.
the rest of
I
my
can see that.
family.
I can see that. Yeah,
You know, if but you know, here I am in California, with my hands in the soil. So I know that all came from living in Italy
yeah,
and that Mediterranean kind of outlook. It's less of, you know, it's just that state of mind that we kind of got attached to, I think.
yeah.
So, and
So
I've tried to take it as much back, you know, with me as possible.
yeah. For me, like I said, it was that, like you referred to, the Mediterranean lifestyle. It was the Navy at that point of time, because the military today, if you join today, honestly, and myself, so it's not just you. As a young man, I don't think I could make it. The way it's so restricting now, where before it was better than college, man. Those 4 years in Italy I spent were like, hey, work hard. That was the thing. Like, you had to be good at your job and work hard and be competent. And we all were, from what I remember. We were pretty successful, career-wise, in the Navy at that point. And but it was party hard too. It was okay to party and have fun. These kids nowadays are not allowed to, like, have fun. It's so strict now. Every little thing they get in trouble for. In my little bit of time that I've been in the army, I've been here 3 years. I think I've seen or heard like 20 people get kicked out. In my whole 14 years in the Navy, I think I know like two people who got kicked out. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? So, like,
yeah,
any little infraction in the Navy, it was like, okay, you fucked up. We'll handle it at our level. Where here nowadays, it's like no one's willing to help a person out. It seems like to me, it's like you're not allowed to go through that phase that we we're talking about in your early, 20s or whatever, where, hey, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna do some things because your hormones are still wild. You don't really know what it is to be an adult or be a professional, and you're experiencing life, right? You're going out, you're chasing that woman, and you're staying out late all night, knowing that you have to work the next day, and you shouldn't, but What the hell, right? You're not allowed it to do that anymore. It seems like,
Wow.
well, maybe it's just a societal thing. Maybe society has changed, man. It feels that way for me anyhow.
It has, and you know, there's greater concerns, you know, with those changes. My wife just saw The Social Dilemma. I haven't seen it yet,
I've heard
but she
good things.
saw it and then like canceled her Facebook like the next day,
Yeah.
and then she you know, she talked. We have these neighbors that just moved in that are really nice. We've gotten really close with them, their family, and um, so she reached out to them immediately afterwards and had them watch it, and then they canceled their Facebooks,
Yeah.
and I was just like, and so I'm gonna probably watch it, and I know how it's gonna disturb me, but it is probably a conversation that our society we need to start having with each other, and in terms of you know, how we communicate with one another now, and the kind of, you know, what the divisions that social media has maybe brought to into focus
Yeah.
in our country, and the dangers of always looking at a device. I think with the kids now, especially with COVID, all the kids are having to learn, learn from the computer. So they were on the computer a lot to begin with, and now they're also going to school on their computers.
It's their whole lifestyle.
And
Yeah.
and I know I've spoken to other parents. My kids are just very young, like yours, so there's still some control I think that we have in terms of controlling it. But some of my friends with older kids are having real difficulty, where things have just gone off the rails, and their kids are always either playing video games or on their phones or on their iPads or whatever, and so they're kind of missing out on this era. You and I are about the same age, so we remember the time we grew up before the internet age.
Oh yeah.
Where, you know, it was yeah, we're starting to feel, I guess maybe I'm just starting to sound like an old person, but
I'm there too, man. Don't worry about it.
You had these visceral kind of experiences that, you know, you can get into stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but you're learning from it, and you're growing, you know, by doing things in reality.
Yeah.
And not just virtually all day.
Yes.
And I have nothing against video games, and that's maybe the point I'm trying to make, that maybe they've made video games so well now that they're just super addictive, and
yes.
You know, you never want to put it down, basically. And that's what scares me about the whole, you know, with my kids and video games, where, you know, I know that just how addictive they are now, how good they've become.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah, let me share a little story with you, and then I want to go into a little bit of your history. So when I was studying psychology in college, I had a professor who sort of worked in that industry way back in the day, and got the hell out because morally she just couldn't do it. Her and all her friends made a lot more money than she did, but she got out. And what she was saying is we kept pushing it more and more. And basically the goal or the agenda was to make this thing as addictive as possible. I tell people, because you were, like you said, you referred, like, we grew up before the internet, before this, right? Before the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
If I think about my life back then, right, you know, in those early days, so like elementary school, right? I compare this, or I equate the smartphone to the cigarette. This has replaced what the cigarette used to be when I was a kid. Everybody smoked when I was a young man, and they did it all the time. They did it inside, they did it in cars. Planes used to have ashtrays. Taxis, parents would be in the car with their kids smoking. You would always see people this all the time. This is the new cigarette. Video games, like, I don't have nothing against video games either. I think anything we do in moderation is fine. But video games, to me, has become like the new heroin. This is the new cigarette, and video games are like the new heroin. Like, it's just, I've seen the way my kids play, and then you take it away from them, and it's like they have withdrawals. They're freaking the hell out. Like, I need it. I need it. I don't know if you have any experience with that. Have you seen anything like that?
We the only video game console I've had in my house recently was one of these aftermarket Nintendos that had like 600 games built in.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
And we played Mario Brothers, and my oldest son and I played Contra. Do you remember Contra?
Yeah, yo, that was such a man game. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would like play Contra. That was kind of fun. But see, these old like retro games that we grew up on, you get tired of them after 20 minutes or so.
Right,
Like there's only so far you can go with them, and you get bored. And but even that little thing, my son really got into. Like he wanted to play all the games, and then it broke. Like one of his friends, I think, broke it, and we haven't replaced it yet. And luckily, my oldest son, he doesn't really bring it up that much. Like, oh, I need to have it. I need to have it. I want it for Christmas. He didn't ask for it for Christmas.
Nice. And
so we didn't give it to him for Christmas. I mean, not that we would have anyways, but he has a neighbor girl that's his age that they've been inseparable for quite some time now, but she has, I think, Minecraft on video, the video game. But so he was going over there and sneaking out and playing the video games with her.
Right.
And he'd be gone hours, and we'd come back, and he'd say, "Where you been? What have you been doing?" "Oh, nothing, just the usual." Yeah, they're playing video games. But then her parents got wind of it and saw what was happening, and how their behavior would change. Like they just get very mouthy after playing hours of video games, and you notice that as a parent. You're like, oh, here's how you were before, and here's how you are now. And that's our lives. We're parents. And so then she got cut off from the video games, so now he has no source. But it's gonna probably continue. He's gonna have other friends. We're not gonna be in this pandemic forever.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have other buddies that he'll have they'll have sleepovers. And I'm not totally against all of that, though. We have to have, as parents, some balance with it. And when we were kids, I don't know about you, but when during the Nintendo games, when the role-playing games started coming out, like we would play them like for hours and have a great time. I have great memories, like sleepovers and like soda and like kids partying. We weren't like getting in trouble, but we were video games were involved. But then I got old enough, like I hit 16, and once I had a car, I put down video games. And I moved on to other things, and because there was a big world out there. And I just want that. If it goes that way with my kids, I think that would be fine. But I don't know. I'm just maybe you could tell me your experiences with it, because as a parent, it's hard to navigate how this is all going to unfold and what's best, how to protect them.
Brother, I wish I knew, man, because I think the change is inevitable, right? The one thing that's constant probably in life is that things are going to change. I wrote down, I don't know if you could tell here, but things that pop into my head, like I kind of just write them down. And something that we touched on was, living in reality. I think the question is, what is reality? From what I've been picking up on little bits of here, reality is changing. I used to joke around about 10 years ago, I think. This is 10 years ago. That if something happened and nobody posted it on Facebook, that it didn't happen. It wasn't real. Now, this was like a joke, you know what I mean? Like, hey, somebody would say, hey, did you hear that so-and-so just had a kid or something, or they're dating or they're married or whatever? Well, I didn't see it on Facebook, so I guess what you're telling me isn't real. But that like I said, that's a joke. But I think we're heading in that direction where everything inside that little computer screen or the internet or virtual reality is becoming more real than what real was for me and you. I'll give it another example. I was debating sports video games, football. I actually played football when I was a kid, right? A lot of the guys I know now didn't play much football. They played a lot of video game football. And the way they talk about football with a passion like I did when I was a kid, but they're not talking about that hit that they took, or
Getting lit up.
that time they tackled somebody or they caught a ball in the end zone. But it's with the same passion. You know what I mean? And it's shared. I think reality is something that is shared. So me and you, we have a reality of the Navy. We have a reality of La Madalena. These people today are growing up with the reality of this video game. It's kind of disturbing to me. But if I think on a larger level, like, you know, I think I might have talked about this with Gerhard a little bit. And we don't know where we came from before we got here into this life, right? We were born and like, holy crap, I just woke up. Where was I before? I don't know. Did I just come out of nowhere? I mean, I don't know. And when I die, am I just dead? Am I going somewhere else? So the questions are, again, like I'm saying, what is real? What is even this experience that we're having? I read a book by Dan Brown, the guy, I just finished it this week, the guy who did the Da Vinci Code. It's called Origins. And, you know, it's a thriller. It's a fast-paced action movie type of thing, like the Da Vinci Code. But in it, a theme of it is, where do we come from? And where are we going as a species? Now, I won't give it away to you, but he touches on these things. And if you know anything about Dan Brown, he does a lot of research, man. That Da Vinci Code thing, he was so into it.
Is this the book where everyone becomes sterile at the end?
No. This is just about
Okay.
sort of like technology in the future. The
Is it a new? How new is the book? Is it very
I
new?
think it's pretty new. Yeah, I think it's pretty new. It's called Origins.
Okay. Touch upon the basis, because I usually read all of his books,
Yeah.
but I might have lost
So
track of that.
there's a character who was sort of like a Steve Jobs, no, more of like an Elon Musk type of guy. He called him a futurist. He's a guy who sort of you know, researches things and sort of makes predictions about the future, and you know, creates things sort of like Elon Musk does. And he basically says that he solved where we came from, us human beings, and where we're headed. So like these age-old philosophical questions, you know what I mean? Why are we here, and stuff like that. And before he does this kind of thing where Steve Jobs, remember Steve Jobs would have these big presentations where he's gonna announce the new product that he's gonna release. Well, he did that. He did this big thing on the internet, and he's about to tell the whole world, you
And then
know,
he gets killed.
he gets killed. You know it, bro. You know it, bro. And then the rest of the story is Robert Langdon and this female, and it takes place in Spain. It's so beautiful. I got to go back to Spain.
Yeah, I
He
remember.
describes it.
I read this one because that old church that we saw
Yeah, that we
near.
saw, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one. I can't remember the name of it, but that wild
Barcelona, yeah, crazy looking one. Yeah.
in Barcelona, right? I remember that.
Yeah.
So I just read a lot of books, so I
Good.
kind of lose track sometimes of
Yeah.
the Dan Brown books. I agree. He does a lot of research, and there's a little science and some history, and
Yeah.
and they kind of pace like a movie, so they're really easy to just kind of get through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good one.
Yeah. So hold on, I wanted
Yeah.
to take it back, brother. Unless you had something that you wanted to say real quick.
Something I wanted to say.
Yeah. No?
Well, no, I mean, in terms of reality, reality has been very strange the last year for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
if you're right that there is a collective kind of anxiety that's been mounting. I want to say, like politically and you know, culturally, now economically.
Yeah.
It's very strange times. It's a strange time to have this conversation, because we're all trying to define what our current realities are. And I've been lucky myself. I feel that my family's very young and my kids are young, so they don't know what's going on, and they're so resilient. Like
Yeah,
they're
it's
just
true.
so more adaptable, and they're able to have a good time every day. They're kids, and I've been like following them more mentally,
Yeah.
and just we've been doing a lot of Legos and building and projects, um and then we've been doing a lot of camping this past year.
Awesome.
Right now I'm in we're our new camper,
Nice.
and we've been taking this thing out, and I think that's really helped with just my personal, how I'm dealing with our new reality
Hmm.
is somewhat by incubating with my family, and um, going out into nature and taking them into nature, and we feel like it's very refreshing during these times, especially to be out in nature and to explore. And there's just a lot. There's a lot of natural beauty, and we haven't seen a lot of the West yet. We've been in California since 2006, but California is a big state. We've
Oh
seen a
yeah.
lot of California, and we love it. But there's a huge West out here too.
Yeah.
And so we're now in the process of making, going on these trips to Utah and Arizona, and next year we're going to Colorado, and just we want to get around and you know just try to take this time and do the best we can with the situation, and try to strengthen our family. Is because maybe it could get worse before it gets better,
I
and
hope not.
it
I pray that it
it
doesn't.
could be harder. Yeah, but I mean, I want my family to be strong, and you know, and I am concerned about the kids with the virtual reality. So we're trying to combat that by just being out in nature and doing a lot of camping outside stuff. We still have a TV and we watch movies and stuff when we're
Yeah.
camping, but
Yeah.
um, we limit. It's just it's naturally limiting, in that type of setting. So we're able to do a lot of other things.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I want to go back a little bit because I think it'll give people a little bit more context about who you are and everything that we talked about. I want to trying to go up through your progression, like who you were as a kid, and then into the Navy, and then what you're doing now today. So, who was David? Young David. Tell me about him.
Oh man, I was raised very religiously, um, in New York, and and my mother is very religious. She's still very religious,
Hmm.
and eventually I had a kind of a falling out with the religion that was kind of pressed upon me, and I felt that at the time was
Was
very
that
repressive.
Catholicism?
It was a combination of because my father is a New York Italian, so he's Catholic, but my mother is more of a Protestant,
Okay.
WASP, I guess you'd call, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And I mean, she's that to a T now that I think about it. But so there was also kind of moving from one church to the other, and that kind of confusion that comes from that. Um, but it was a big part of my early life. I was a I got into reading at an early age, which I think kind of set me apart and put me on the right path intellectually. Because once you start reading, it becomes easier to read more, and you just
Yeah.
read more, and
Yeah.
that these days is I think a rarity. So that's another thing I'm trying to press upon my kids is to open those books and
Same here.
get into
Same
it.
here.
So, but I had that, but I was, I was kind of flighty, I became, I got into music,
Hmm.
and as I was just a very, how should I say it? I was a young hippie,
Okay.
um, and all about love
Peace and
and
love.
you know, peace and love, and very innocent, very naive. Didn't get into girls until you know, I was late getting into girls,
Okay.
but I was very introverted. Um, you know, because it was all about my books and all about my guitars. So I you know, I didn't really get out very much when I was young.
Right.
I had my groups of friends, and I was into sports. So I try to have a well balanced kind of diet, I guess,
Yeah.
in that regard. But and then I joined the Navy. So the Navy took a lot of the innocence out of me. Um, Navy
How so?
girls, man,
Okay,
the,
Navy
the
girls.
Navy girls really did a number on me. And then I married one. So
Yeah. Awesome, bro. And we're not
yeah,
saying
so
anything negative about Navy girls because the Navy guys are just as bad. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
kinship. What we mean,
it's
we're not saying,
mutual.
oh, Navy girls this. We mean Navy people are that, or military people are that. We could say.
Yeah, but the Navy girls are the ones that you know, definitely made a man out of me. It took
Ooh.
a while, but they definitely I was very naive joining the military. So, but then I got to travel, and as I said before, that was a very mind expanding experience. Still was heavily maybe left brain centered,
Mm.
where I was you know, heavy on the reading and the writing,
Hmm.
um, but very weak in terms of math and science because I was just
Hmm.
afraid of it.
Hmm.
The word calculus would just freak me out when I was young. But then getting out of the you know, fast forwarding, I got out of the military after 2 tours overseas and then 1 tour in Washington D.C. And um, my wife and I moved out to California, and somehow it made sense for me to, well, I don't know, I could say more specifically that I had an epiphany or a dream where I saw myself in a vineyard working. This was
Wow.
like right after getting out of the military, and we had come up to Temecula um, to drink wine, and we did notice immediately this very powerful connection with Italy
Mm.
in terms of
Yeah.
the landscape
Yeah. Yeah.
and the kind of look of it reminded us of the Mediterranean, and that really turned me on at the time to
Mm.
um, you know, also I was having every door slammed in my face in terms of finding work as a journalist, which was my career in toward the end of the Navy. I was a journalist, so I was looking for work along those lines, and I was basically being told that I have to start over again and go back to school,
Wow.
and that none of my credentials that I gained or the school, the education in the military was transferable. So once it was, I recognized that I had to start over anyways.
Hmm.
I I just it was a career change. So I really liked that I was able to get out of the military. I struggled, and it was very very difficult, you know, and I don't think people realize just how difficult the transition out of the military can be. And
Right.
that's no matter, you know, how it takes you. I mean, I think by now Brooke and I have transitioned out of the military and are standing on our own 2 feet financially, and you know, but man, it took a long time.
Yeah.
And there's not enough support, I think, for veterans when they get out to, and there's not enough support from the civilian job market for
Mm.
military. I mean, um, I think if you're a stand-up service member and you've got some education and schooling involved in your military experience, that you should you know, that you should be able to use that. That should have
Means
some merit.
something. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that happened twice to me. The first time, my first tour, I was an ordnanceman, and I had a bunch of schooling that didn't go anywhere when I got out. So then I'd rejoined,
Right.
and then had something more marketable, which is photography and journalistic work. and then that went nowhere. So, but bottom line is that your struggles matter. Your struggles are there for a reason,
Yeah.
and you really don't know that at the time when you're struggling,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see it later. You can see
Mm-hmm.
how it all had to come together within that timeline, within that framework, so that you could grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that led me into the wine business, and that in itself has been a journey. I've been doing it now for 13 or 14 years, and it really suits me. It suits my personality. I
It
did
does.
have
I
to go
see it.
back to school.
Yeah.
I have to go back to school and develop the right side of my brain,
Uh-huh.
which was all the math and science.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I, had to go once my long-term goals became realized,
Mm-hmm.
then my short-term goals became more clear and accessible to me.
Mm.
Like I had to, and my long-term goal was when I was going back to college, going back to get my education. My long-term goal was to be a winemaker,
Right.
and I knew that to get there, I had um, to get good at math and get good at this, to understand science and be
Right.
a scientist.
Right.
And that was a 10-year journey in terms of
Wow.
education, of
Wow,
getting
brother.
through community college, and then finishing off at UC Davis, and that was a long journey. And at the beginning of that journey, I guess the funny thing is that I began that journey for financial reasons. I
Really?
began that journey because I was fresh out of the military, and I was making minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
and I was poor. And I figured if I went to night school, that I would get paid.
Right.
I got paid a monthly stipend from the military, just to get my education. So it was able to kind of offset my, because I was training as a winemaker, I was apprenticing, but I
Right.
wasn't making any money.
Right. Yeah.
But it gave me that kind of leeway to, not just have to focus on the money
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
focus on the growth. So,
Yeah.
here I am.
Yeah. I had the same experience. I don't think I went through as much as a struggle as you and Chris did, but towards the end of my Navy career, I had a really big struggle, sort of an existential type of struggle, which led me to leave the Navy. So that was where my struggle was. But then once I got out and I got with Jose, I got with Chema. I see that you guys been hanging out. He went to go visit you the other day, and we were best buds. We still are, and we lived together. And I got to, like you said, the stipend to go to school. I became a way more relaxed person. I went from like espresso to decaf. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And I got to focus on my what I wanted to do, which was psychology. And I just kind of got into it. And I'm yeah, going through that process of just like, here's, like you said something about like you knew what your final goal was. And as soon as you saw that, then all the steps, like first I got to do this, breaking it down into smaller things was just so helpful. Even if it was just you know finish this next paper that's due like in 2 weeks. Can I do that? Yeah, I could do that. Finish that paper. All right, so in
Mhm.
another 2 weeks there's this midterm and you got to study these 3 books. Can you read these 3 books and pass that to, okay, I could do that. I didn't look so far ahead. I sort of just said what's the next challenge. And for me, that helped me a whole lot.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss those days of, those formative. When I first got back into, to college, and I was fresh out of the military, and I was just taking all my like electives and
Yeah.
almost general, education. But I was so enthusiastic at the time that I was making the transition. I was on my way, and I had resources. I was finally like, had a path in front of me, and I think that just helped. It's good to just stay focused on things and have things that keep you focused. And I think with winemaking, it's very dynamic, it's very multi-dimensional. Depending on the season, I'm doing very different things.
Yeah.
I have like these days I have multiple wineries that I'm working for, so I have no downtime anymore.
Yeah.
I used to have downtime where after harvest, which is at the end is usually November, December, right in time for the holidays, usually is when things are dying down and my busy season is coming to a close. And I would joke with people that I would, in the vineyard, the vines go into dormancy around that same time after harvest. It's like they need a rest, so they drop their leaves and then they go dormant for the duration of the winter. And I would joke with people that I would do the same, and just after harvest, when you're working 7 days, very long days, and it's just very stressful. But when that would end, I would say, okay, I'm out of here. Don't bother me. I'm going into dormancy.
Yeah.
And don't bother me until February or March.
Right.
Then I would try to catch up with family time and find myself workout, because I think on your body, it could be very stressful physically also, and also mentally. But I would spend all this time just getting back to normal. And I don't get that opportunity anymore.
Yeah.
I'm too busy.
Hey, tell people where they can find your wine, man.
Okay, well, I work for smaller companies in Temecula Valley, California. But that said, depending on where people live, they can go to the wineries online and shop, and have wines delivered to them. I mean, that's just the world we live in now. But I don't work for well, one of the companies I work for, we kind of mass distribute to local supermarkets. We make a few wines that are big enough volumes to go to the local supermarkets
on a national level, or
but yeah,
California.
you won't find them. Yeah, you won't find them in New York or Florida. You have to come to California. So I would say that's like another level, what we call boutique kind of wineries, but that I enjoy that more. I've seen a little bit of the mass produced side of things, where wines are being processed more like the process is more automated in a way.
Yeah.
And I've seen that firsthand. Was a part of it for a little while, long enough to know that wasn't for me. That wasn't how I wanted. That wasn't where I wanted to go with my career. So I worked for some smaller wineries, but that focused on handcrafting wines, and really kind of expressing the art of not, well, the marriage of man and nature. But if you're doing your job well, I think that means getting out of the way of the process as much as possible, and allowing the farming and the vineyard itself to express itself.
Wow.
Because that's where I think the quality lies, and then the subsequent processes of fermentation and barrel aging and that's not magic. It's processing in a way. And but it's for me, that process is designed to preserve whatever was there to begin with in the vineyard. And so it's that work in the vineyard that matters the most to me, in the cultivation and the understanding of the soil matrix, and the plant's relationship with that matrix, where you're you're essentially making your product in the farming process,
Mhm.
and then the processes afterwards are just there to preserve
Right.
what's there. What you did in the vineyard, you're preserving and you're encapsulating, but you're not adulterating it in a way that's going to um, get in the way of that process.
Yeah. I hear that you're saying that basically if you respect the process and take care of it, then the end product will pay off. Where some people maybe focus on the end product a little bit more than the process.
Oh, yeah, you'd be surprised how many people and how many people involved in I'll say they're usually not the winemakers or
More on the
the
business end.
workers. Yeah, exactly. The people on the marketing end, they could be very out of touch with the actual reality of getting your hands dirty and working with the soil and
Right.
working with each plant as an individual. It's an individual organism,
Yeah.
and there's that understanding of those natural processes, those biological processes, and how that there's an interface too, and understanding the interface, which is the human senses,
Mm-hmm.
and why people like wines and why people don't like a wine.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to make everybody happy in this business,
Right.
but try and understand, like, or find a middle point of that, what turns people on,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that could vary depending on where you're making your product, what your target audience is, and a bunch of other things. But that part is what keeps me engaged, I think, is just understanding the human mind
Yeah.
and why people like what they like. And you can grow a thick skin in this business. If you'll see some people, this hasn't happened very often with me, but occasionally, like, I'll like witness someone like tasting a wine that I've made and making a face that I don't want them to make,
Ooh.
and then pouring it out.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, now that's only happened, not many times, but
Right.
and I'm happy to say that I think most people really enjoy the wines that I make, and that you know that I'm getting better. Every year I'm learning more things about it, and hopefully
Exactly.
that's that where I'm on the right track. But yeah, I mean, that's just a reality of this business.
Yeah.
My first job was as a paper boy.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, was that your first job?
No,
And I
I
realized,
shoveled snow. That was my first one.
oh yeah, I did that too. I did
Yeah.
that too. But my first job, I was 11 years old. I had a paper route, and I realized then, um, how you can't make everyone happy.
Exactly.
On Sunday mornings, my bike would be like chock full of paper, because the Sunday papers are huge,
Yeah.
and I have to fit them all in my little paperboy bag. And I'd head out. If I headed out too early to drop off the paper, then people's dogs would bark and wake them up, and then they get
Mm.
pissed and say,
Mm-hmm.
"You're coming here too early. Can you come a little later?" So then the next Sunday I go out and deliver the papers 2 hours later, and get complaints from, Joe, like, saying, "Oh, I read the paper with my morning coffee." This is back in New York, right? So,
Yeah.
I got to read the paper with my coffee. You're bringing it too late now. And so those people were pissed
Yeah.
off. And yeah, 11 years old, you do learn that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
eventually you just kind of like, let it go,
Yeah.
and just do the best you can with the situation.
Yeah, man. Hey, David, thank you for coming on, man. This was awesome. Wish we had more time. There's so many things I wanna go to. But let's do it again, man. I
Sure,
really,
bud.
really like this, brother.
Well, thank you, man. I hope you're enjoying Korea.
Yeah, Korea's awesome.
I can't imagine what that's like. I've never been to Asia, but
Well, you got to
I'm
come
glad
visit, brother.
I'm glad you're still exploring and you're traveling.
Yeah.
You know,
Never
it's
too
something
old to
I've
learn
given up.
new things.
Yeah, I did all
All
my
right, brother.
traveling when I was in my 20s, but
Yeah.
you guys take care.
Thank you.